buckle up for a jaw-dropping tale at Atlanta's busiest airport. A sharply dressed man mistaken for just another passenger is rudely told to wait outside by airline staff. Little do they know, he's the new CEO, undercover, and ready to expose a toxic culture of bias. This gripping story of justice and transformation will keep you hooked till the end. A black CEO was told by airline staff to wait outside, only to stun them when they learned he's the airline's owner. Imagine this Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport is buzzing. Overhead announcements drone on and suitcases clatter across glossy floors. Amid the sea of passengers stands a poised man in a tailored business suit, quietly clutching his carry-on. What no one knows yet is that Marcus is the new CEO of one of the nation's largest airlines, Horizon Airways. Over the next hour, he won't just reveal his role. He'll shatter stereotypes, expose toxic power plays, and deliver the toughest consequences the airline staff has ever seen. Fasten your seatbelts. Marcus Johnson landed in Atlanta just 15 minutes ago, stepping off a connecting flight from his hometown of Chicago. He carries himself discreetly, standing 6 feet 3 inches with broad shoulders, but a humble tilt of the head. At 52, Marcus's salt and pepper hair gives him a distinguished air. He wears a perfectly tailored navy suit, exuding the quiet confidence of someone used to being underestimated. His heart races not from the usual travel rush, but because he's about to visit the airline he recently acquired, though almost no one there knows it. Despite his official title as CEO of Horizon Airways, Marcus chose to keep his identity under wraps to test his latest business venture. He wants to see firsthand how the staff operates. He wants an unfiltered view of how they handle daily operations, and more importantly, how they treat customers, especially those they deem unimportant. As he moves through the central concourse of Hartsfield-Jackson, Marcus can't help but notice that despite the high-energy atmosphere, there's an undercurrent of tension among the airline staff. At least a dozen passengers are arguing with employees over missed flights, lost luggage, or unexpected fees. These initial observations tell him not everything is rosy behind the scenes. As he cautiously approaches Horizon Airways' check-in counter, a thrill runs down his spine. He's braced for anything. Then something unexpected happens. An older employee behind the counter wearing silver-rimmed glasses perched on his nose spots Marcus approaching and gives him an appraising glance. Marcus doesn't flash a first-class ticket or announce his role. He simply steps up to ask about flight details, curious to see how he'll be treated as an everyday passenger. "Excuse me," Marcus begins, clearing his throat softly. "Can I ask a question about the gate agent?" He doesn't even finish before the employee snaps. "Wait your turn," pointing to the end of the line where a group of restless passengers stands. Better yet, wait outside the queue area if you don't have a boarding pass in hand. This desk is for serious travelers only. Marcus feels a surge of heat in his chest. He glances at the half-empty line. Normally, he'd try to diffuse the situation politely, but he notices the man's eyes narrow with an expression that says, "More." This isn't just about the line. It's something deeper, something uglier. "Excuse me," Marcus says, calmly trying to stay composed. "I have a ticket, and I..." "Wait outside," the agent repeats louder this time, drawing the attention of a few travelers, who glance over briefly before returning to their business. "You can't just barge in here like you own the place." The words carry a bitter, ironic sting. Marcus, still composed, steps back. He decides not to escalate things. He nods and says, "All right, I'll wait." But inside, his mind is racing. If this is how an airline employee treats a paying passenger, especially a black passenger, as Marcus suspects this interaction is racially charged, there's a lot of work to do. Neither this man nor anyone else at the desk knows that in less than 30 minutes, Marcus will reveal his true identity, and the consequences of their actions will hit like a tidal wave. Before heading to the designated waiting area, Marcus discreetly circles an information kiosk to observe how others are treated. As the new CEO, he knows the airline's chain of command inside out, but no one recognizes him by face. He prefers it that way. He notices a young Hispanic woman at the front of the line, struggling to communicate with another check-in agent. Despite her efforts to speak broken English, the employee doesn't offer Spanish assistance, though the airline prides itself on bilingual services at major airports. Instead, the agent sighs dramatically and says, "No one here speaks Spanish. Next in line, please." The woman lingers, eyes darting in confusion, her child tugging at her sleeve. A few counters away, an older black woman is asking about seating. Marcus listens as the employee tells her, "We've got economy seats left, but it looks like you can't afford anything higher." The woman freezes, stunned tears welling up. Marcus feels a knot in his stomach at these blatant displays of bias and unprofessionalism. He'd read the internal reports. On paper, Horizon Airways emphasizes high customer service standards, championing diversity and equal opportunity. But the reality on the ground is far from that polished mission statement. This is exactly why Marcus insisted on keeping his identity secret. During his initial visits, the lines continue to crawl like molasses. People queue up, some more anxious than others, each with a story the airline staff seems uninterested in. A family of 4 in Disney World. 22 and 23 t-shirts looks frustrated while asking about baggage fees. Another employee rolls their eyes and dismisses them with a scripted response. Meanwhile, loudspeaker announcements rub salt in passengers' wounds, signaling more delayed flights. From behind a pillar, Marcus quietly taps the record button on his phone, capturing some of the overt rudeness. He plans to compile these recordings into a comprehensive report for HR. Of course, what happens next has even greater impact, as he reveals he's not just a passenger, but the one with the power to transform or dismantle their entire operation. He considers confronting the staff right then, but decides to wait. His plan is to walk the terminal, observe other facets of the operation, and return to the main check-in area. Over the next 30 minutes, he sees enough to determine the fate of several employees. Marcus had heard rumors of a secretive handshake culture within Horizon's conservative faction, a network thriving on nepotism and unspoken deals. He wants to see if that culture trickles down to the ground staff. He heads to the VIP lounge, where employees often boast about premium service. The lounge is on the second floor behind frosted glass doors, with a smiling attendant at the reception desk. Her name tag reads, Emily. Emily looks up from her computer and offers Marcus a friendly, slightly strained smile. Her uniform is pristine, and she speaks in a polite tone. "Good afternoon, sir. May I see your lounge pass or boarding pass? Marcus presents his first-class boarding pass, knowing this is a big test. Will she show the same bias, or are lounge staff better trained? Emily scans his ticket, but a crease forms on her brow, betraying confusion. She looks at him skeptically. "Do you have a membership card?" she asks, "or a companion pass?" "No, just the first-class ticket," Marcus replies. She types something into the computer. Marcus can't see the screen, but he guesses she's verifying his eligibility for lounge access. Sure enough, her eyebrows knit tighter. It does look like your seat is in first class. Let me make a quick call." Emily dials the lounge phone. "Hey, just checking?" "Yeah. C2A. Uh-huh. Yep. He's here at the desk." "Okay, thanks." She hangs up and turns back to him with a guarded expression. "All right, Mr. Johnson, you're good to go." She gestures toward the frosted glass door. "Welcome to the Diamond Lounge." Marcus thanks her politely and steps inside. The lounge is fairly crowded with plush, seating a small buffet area and a bar with stools, where a bartender serves cocktails to travelers. Soft jazz plays overhead, and large windows offer panoramic views of planes taxiing on the tarmac. But the atmosphere feels stiff. A handful of suited employees watch the crowd with an air of exclusivity, as if expecting a certain type of person in the lounge, specifically affluent travelers. Fitting a narrow demographic, Marcus takes a seat near the window and scans the room. Moments later, a lounge attendant approaches. He's a tall, lean man in a crisp black suit, with a name tag reading Nathan. He gives a curt nod. "Can I assist you, sir?" The words are polite, but the tone is clipped. There's a hint of the same suspicion Marcus saw in the check-in agent's eyes. "No, thank you. I'm good for now," Marcus replies, equally polite. Nathan lingers. "We have a complimentary buffet for first-class passengers, but some items may incur a charge if you're not a top-tier loyalty member. Are you a Diamond member?" Marcus shakes his head, deciding to probe further. "No, just first class for a business trip." There it is again, that fleeting look of disdain on Nathan's face. "Right," he says. "You can still enjoy the basics." Then, without offering a direct invitation, he turns abruptly and walks away, leaving Marcus to draw his own conclusions. Marcus recognizes this kind of discrimination. The staff assume he's not a regular lounge-goer. Maybe it's his appearance. Maybe it's because he's alone. Or maybe it's because they think a black man in a suit doesn't belong unless he's flaunting wealth or dropping big names. It stings, but it also fuels his resolve to gather more evidence about how staff treat understated minority customers. He wonders how many other minority travelers have endured these subtle slights here. He wonders how this environment thrived under the oversight of the management he replaced. Surely the former CEO knew, or maybe they didn't care. Things are about to change. Marcus decides to observe other interactions. Sitting in an armchair, he pulls out his tablet, ostensibly to check emails, but actually to eavesdrop on nearby conversations. A pair of off-duty flight attendants chatting in hushed tones catches his attention. They're in partial uniform jackets draped over their arms. He overhears them mention a manager named David Thompson, a name that rings a bell from company briefings. If Marcus recalls correctly, David Thompson is Horizon's Southeast Regional Operations Manager. Rumor has it, David is a gatekeeper, known for favoring loyalists who share his worldview. Marcus had received numerous HR complaints about David's cronyism. It seems David rewards employees who follow his unwritten rules, often expressed through subtle discriminatory actions. As if on cue, David himself strides into the lounge. He's a tall, balding white man in his 50s, wearing a blazer with the Horizon logo on the lapel. A group of uniformed staff trails behind him. They fan out, greeting him like he's a minor celebrity. Marcus leans forward in his chair, curious to see David in action. David scans the lounge, his gaze lingering on each occupant with a judgmental air. When his eyes land on Marcus, a flicker of something close to contempt passes over his face. Marcus nods politely, but David doesn't reciprocate. Instead, David turns to chat with one of his staff, a woman with a tight bun and an ivory scarf. They whisper stealing glances at Marcus. The woman stifles a small laugh. David smirks. This all but confirms the toxic culture. Marcus's pulse quickens, the tension in his chest tightening. If David behaves this way openly, it's no wonder frontline staff feel emboldened to mistreat passengers. Marcus types a quick note on his tablet. David Thompson's behavior. Investigate further. Possible immediate termination. While eavesdropping on David, Marcus also notices the lounge attendant, Nathan, now fawning over another passenger, a white businessman with an expensive leather briefcase. Nathan brings him a glass of champagne, unprompted, then launches into cheerful small talk. The disparity in treatment is so blatant, it's almost laughable if not infuriating. Still, Marcus keeps his cool. He reminds himself that change, lasting change, requires more than an impulsive confrontation. He needs a plan. He'll gather evidence, then strike at the right moment. Marcus doesn't have to wait long for that opportunity. As he continues watching David Thompson and his entourage, he sees David pull aside a young black ground staff member who looks nervous. David speaks to him quietly, but the tension ripples through the air. Marcus quietly rises from his seat and moves closer, pretending to study flight information on a display screen. "Just handle it," David says to the employee. "I don't want to hear about you giving special treatment to your people again." He spits out the last two words. Understood, the employee, whose name tag reads, Jamal, says, swallowing hard. "Sir, I wasn't giving anyone special treatment. That passenger requested a seat with extra leg room, and I didn't think David cuts him off. This is a business, not a charity. If you're so eager to help people who can't afford upgrades, maybe you should work for them somewhere else." His voice drips with condescension. "Now get back out there and do your job the way I tell you, or you won't have a job, period." Jamal nods, eyes downcast, then turns away, shoulders slumped in defeat. The entire exchange lasts less than 30 seconds, but it leaves Marcus seething, as a manager openly threatening an employee for showing basic kindness to a passenger. Worse, David's insinuations and sneering tone reek of bigotry. If Marcus had any doubts about David's fitness to continue, they vanished in that moment. Marcus clenches his jaw, adrenaline surging. He takes a breath, reminding himself, just a little longer. He'll confront David soon, but he wants a bigger stage to unleash the reckoning brewing inside him. Over the next 15 minutes, Marcus discreetly exits the lounge. He returns to the main check-in area, phone in hand. On the device's screen, he pulls up a private email thread with Horizon's board of directors. He types a quick message from Marcus Johnson, CEO, to Board HR subject, immediate action at ATL greetings. I'm currently incognito at our Hartsfield-Jackson operations. I've witnessed multiple instances of employee misconduct and policy violations, including discrimination. I'll convene an emergency staff meeting within the hour to address these issues. Please arrange for HR to be present immediately in person or via video conference. We appreciate your urgent cooperation. Marcus Johnson. He hits send. Then he makes a quick call to Sarah Mitchell, the newly appointed COO who's on a business trip in New York. She answers on the second ring. Marcus, how's the undercover boss gig going? She asks, her voice tinged with concern. Worse than we expected, he replies. I need you on video in the next hour. I'm scheduling a snap meeting with all on-duty staff. Make sure HR is looped in. Sarah catches her breath. Good grief, that bad. Worse, I'll fill you in later. Just trust me, I need corporate backup. You got this, boss, Sarah says firmly. Marcus ends the call, his heart pounding like a war drum. Outside the terminal's massive windows, he can see a Boeing 767 with the Horizon logo taxiing toward a gate. The airline's logo, a sleek globe with wings, feels mocking, given the ugliness within these halls. But that logo will soon symbolize positive transformation if Marcus has his way. It's time to drop the act. Marcus heads toward the security gate leading to the airline's offices. A board-issued security guard looks up as Marcus approaches. Sir, authorized personnel. Only the guard barks. Marcus calmly presents his Horizon ID, which lists him as CEO with top-level clearance. The guard's eyes widen as he scans the ID. My apologies, sir. This way. Thank you, Marcus replies, stepping through the gate with a quiet sense of purpose. The office area is a maze of cubicles, conference rooms, and administrative desks. People bustle about, phones pressed to ears, typing furiously, oblivious to the drama about to unfold. Marcus strides down the hallway toward the largest conference room at the end, known as the Atlantic Suite. He flicks on the lights, fluorescent beams, revealing a polished long table and neatly arranged chairs. He makes a quick call to the main airline office for an overhead announcement. Attention all Horizon Airways staff, currently working at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. Please report to the Atlantic Suite conference room immediately. This includes check-in agents, lounge staff, ground crew, and all management. The meeting begins in 15 minutes. Attendance is mandatory. The person on the other end swallows audibly, but acknowledges the message. Within seconds, the announcement blares across the employee intercom system. Anyone in a Horizon uniform or badge can hear it. Marcus takes a moment to steady himself. In the next hour, he'll personally hold these individuals accountable for the discrimination and unprofessionalism he witnessed. The question is, how will they react when they learn who he is? 15 minutes later, a motley group of employees begins filing into the Atlantic Suite. Some look confused, others annoyed at being pulled from their posts. The check-in agent who told Marcus to wait outside is among them, still wearing that same smug expression. David Thompson enters, with his entourage of supervisors, radiating irritation. Clearly, no one tipped him off that the CEO is in the house. Marcus stands at the head of the table, arms crossed silently. Waiting until the last stragglers enter, the tension in the room builds. Whispers ripple through the staff speculating about the emergency meeting's purpose. Finally, Marcus clears his throat. The chatter stops instantly as all eyes turn to him. He takes a deep breath and begins. "Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marcus Johnson." A tepid wave of reactions follows some employees glancing at each other, perhaps wondering why they should care about this man. David Thompson takes a seat near the middle of the table, arms crossed defiantly. Marcus continues, "I'm the new CEO of Horizon Airways. The effect is electric." Whispers turn into a low roar of disbelief and shock. David sits upright, his face paling. Employees who previously ignored Marcus now glance around nervously. Some look puzzled, trying to recall if they've seen him in the building before. As the room falls into stunned silence, Marcus continues calmly. "This morning, I went undercover as a regular passenger to see how our staff interacts with customers and how our management runs this operation." He pauses, letting the truth sink in. What I witnessed was appalling. The silence turns deafening. I saw blatant discrimination, unprofessional behavior, and a toxic work environment stretching from the ground level to management. Let me be clearer. This is unacceptable. A hush falls. Then David speaks up, his voice laced with false bravado for Johnson. "I believe there's a misunderstanding here. We pride ourselves on excellent service. If there were any isolated incidents, I assure you, they don't represent the majority of our staff." He tries to smile, but it looks like a grimace. Marcus fixes him with a steely gaze. "You must be David Thompson, Regional Operations." Manager David nods. Sweat Marcus continues. "David, I had the privilege of witnessing how you spoke to one of your employees, Jamal, in the lounge earlier, threatening him for helping a struggling passenger, accusing him. Let me recall your words of giving special treatment to his people." Marcus crosses his arms. "That wasn't an isolated incident, David. That was bigotry." David's eyes dart nervously, but he tries to stay composed. "With all due respect, Mr. Johnson, you may have misinterpreted the context. Trust me, I understood perfectly." Marcus says, his voice ringing with authority. I was recording. At that, David goes pale. Employees exchange anxious glances. Marcus takes a deep breath and scans the room. "Let me clarify something for all of you. As of 2 weeks ago, I own the controlling stake in Horizon Airways. I know everything that goes on in this company. Reports, complaints, financials, and more. My goal is simple. Turn this airline into a beacon of customer satisfaction and employee fairness, or tear down every piece of toxic infrastructure standing in the way." He pauses, eyeing the employees, some looking nervous, others simply stunned. "Now, for those who treat passengers and colleagues with respect, you have nothing to fear. In fact, I plan to support and uplift employees who believe in fairness. But for those who perpetuate the bias and cruelty I witnessed today..." He locks eyes with the check-in agent, who told him to wait outside. The agent squirms under the stare. There will be consequences, swift and unavoidable. Marcus taps his phone. "I have audio and video recordings of the following incidents." He lists them. Each case lands like a hammer blow on the implicated staff. The incident at the check-in counter, when an employee told a black passenger Marcus himself to wait outside, shooing him away, as if he had no right to be there. The incident with the Hispanic passenger, when an employee refused to call a Spanish-speaking colleague and dismissed her. The seat upgrade issue when an employee implied an older black woman couldn't afford anything above economy. David Thompson in the lounge, threatening Jamal, and specifically referencing his people. As Marcus recounts each piece of evidence, the involved employees seem to shrink in their seats. He hasn't named them individually yet, but they likely recognize their own misconduct. I also observed lounge staff favoring certain passengers, while virtually ignoring others, despite all holding first-class tickets. This violates our official policy and severely damages our reputation. Since this operation falls directly under David's management, the responsibility rests on his shoulders, and everyone who followed his lead. David starts to stammer a rebuttal. "Mr. Johnson, please allow me to." Marcus cuts him off, his voice, low but resonant. "I'm not done." David bites his tongue, looking furious but powerless. Marcus continues, "Horizon Airways is bigger than any one of us, and we need employees who embody the values we've set forth. If you can't or won't adhere to basic principles of respect and service, you won't work here anymore." Effective immediately, he pauses, letting the words echo. Marcus glances at his phone where Sarah Mitchell and an HR team are connected via video feed. On the conference room's large screen, Sarah's face appears alongside two HR directors. They nod in support of Marcus. He begins calling names, his tone resolute. David Thompson, Regional Operations Manager. "You are terminated for discriminatory behavior and fostering a hostile work environment. I have ample evidence supporting this decision. Security will escort you out. Robert Davis, check-in agent who told me to wait outside. You are terminated effective immediately for misconduct and racial bias. Return your uniform and ID to HR. Laura Bennett, lounge attendant, who refused to assist the Hispanic traveler and mocked her language skills. You are terminated effective immediately. Nathan Carter, lounge attendant, who repeatedly favored specific demographics and sidelined others. You are terminated, effective immediately." With each name, silence grips the room, followed by gasps or murmurs of shock. Some spared employees look visibly relieved while others wear somber acceptance. David Thompson stands, his face flushed. He shouts, "You can't do this," then looks around for support. "I've given years to this company. You have no right." Marcus glares at him with disdain. "I have every right. Your behavior tarnished the very brand you swore to uphold. And I don't care how many years you served if you can't serve honorably." Security personnel step forward as Marcus nods, surrounding David and the other terminated employees. David's face contorts with rage, but he doesn't resist. He storms out, guards trailing behind. Robert, Laura, and Nathan follow, looking dazed and humiliated. They exchange anxious glances, perhaps realizing their careers just imploded. After the fired employees are escorted out, Marcus addresses the remaining staff, many of whom look shell-shocked. Some may have been complicit, others perhaps just relieved. To those remaining, Marcus says calmly, "Consider this a turning point. I'm not here to fire everyone. I'm here to set a new standard." He pauses, letting the tension ease slightly. If you're ready to embrace these changes, transparent communication, genuine customer care, diversity, training, and accountability, I'm fully behind you. But if you resist, I'll find out, and you'll be gone just as quickly. He points to the screen where Sarah and the HR team are visible. We'll conduct an internal investigation into other misconduct and a comprehensive retraining program for all staff, top to bottom. Watch your emails and station managers for mandatory training sessions. Starting next week, a young woman in the back wearing a ground operations uniform raises her hand hesitantly. "Mr. Johnson, I'm so sorry for what you saw. We've wanted change for a long time, but we were scared. David had so much power." Marcus nods. "I understand, and I appreciate your honesty. My door is always open to employees who want to report issues or suggest improvements. If we work together, we can rebuild a culture we're all proud of." Murmurs of agreement ripple through, and some nod in support. Marcus thanks them and adjourns the meeting as employees file out. Several pause to offer shy nods or thank him. Some are visibly teary, relieved that David Thompson's authoritarian reign is finally over. After the meeting, Marcus steps outside through a side entrance leading to the tarmac. He needs fresh air. The sky is clear over the vast runway. Jets roar overhead. He stands near a chain-link fence, breathing in the scent of jet fuel mixed with the crisp Atlanta afternoon air. Suddenly, he spots David Thompson, along with a few of his newly fired cronies gathered in the employee parking lot. David seems to be waiting for a company car that will never arrive. In a moment of desperation, David strides across the tarmac toward Marcus, ignoring warnings about unauthorized tarmac access. "Johnson," David yells breathless. A security officer hurries after him, but David presses on. He stomps up to the fence, glaring at Marcus through the links. "You can't just waltz in here and ruin people's livelihoods." Marcus turns to face him calmly. The fence between them, "I did what was necessary." "Necessary," David barks. "Do you know how many years I've invested? How many times I had to cover for incompetent employees like that kid Jamal, who practically gives away our product for free?" "That wasn't giving it away, David." Marcus says, his voice firm. "That was compassion. And for the record, Jamal's efforts to accommodate elderly or special needs passengers aren't just good customer service. They're part of our brand promise. You wouldn't understand that, 'cause you never cared." "Look, I'll sue David," threatens, jabbing a finger through the fence. "Wrongful termination, defamation. You name it, I'll drag you to court." Johnson. Marcus exhales slowly. "I've consulted our legal team. We have all the evidence needed to justify immediate termination. You can sue if you want, but you'll just waste your money and time. Meanwhile, I'll be busy restoring this airline to what it should have been from the start. A carrier that serves everyone with respect." David's face twists with anger and desperation as then a security officer arrives and places a hand on David's shoulder. "Sir, you're trespassing beyond authorized areas. Please leave." "This isn't over, Johnson," David shouts as he's pulled away. "You'll regret crossing me." Marcus watches him go unfazed. He doubts David has any real clout left. People like David thrive on intimidation. But once stripped of power, they often fade into obscurity. Back inside, Marcus finds Jamal at the baggage claim area, looking tense, as if expecting the worst. Jamal, Marcus says, gently approaching him. Jamal startles and adjusts his name tag. "Sir, I wasn't sure if you wanted me at the meeting." Marcus offers a warm smile. "I saw how David spoke to you. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Know that you're safe here. Keep treating passengers the way you do. Our airline needs more people like you." Tears well in Jamal's eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I was worried I'd lose my job. David was always threatening me if I didn't do things his way." Marcus places a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You're not going anywhere unless you choose to. And if anyone else gives you trouble, come straight to me or HR." "Got it." Jamal nods, relief washing over his face. Throughout the afternoon, Marcus also speaks with the older black woman at the check-in gate, the Hispanic traveler, and a few other passengers who were mistreated. He offers sincere apologies, future flight upgrades, and direct corporate contacts for further concerns. While it can't erase the harm done, these gestures serve as a first step in rebuilding trust. David Thompson's abrupt termination sent shockwaves through every corridor of Hartsfield-Jackson and rippled out to other Horizon aviation hubs across the country. News spread like wildfire faster than Marcus could have anticipated. Within an hour of David's firing, everyone from check-in agents to baggage handlers had heard some version of the dramatic tale, how the new Undercover CEO revealed himself in a tense staff meeting and swiftly fired the once untouchable regional operations manager. While some employees initially froze in confusion, wondering if they'd be caught in the firing spree, most felt a sudden, unexpected relief. For years, David's domineering presence had loomed over daily operations. He was the kind of manager who could make or break careers with a single comment, and he wielded that power relentlessly. Now that David was gone, the fear that kept many workers silent began to dissipate, replaced by cautious hope for real change. In the back hallways beyond the passenger areas, where employees pass each other, rushing to gates, and baggage claims, whispered conversations abounded. Ground crews who once kept their heads down, afraid to even greet each other in front of David's lieutenants, now exchanged astonished looks and tentative smiles. They sensed a shift in the air. The biggest barrier to fairness and kindness had been removed in one swift move. Jamal, the young ground staffer David berated for special treatment, felt a noticeable weight lift off his shoulders. A supervisor who once dismissed Jamal's ideas now approached him at the baggage carousel with a subdued smile. "Heard the news," she muttered. "You holding up okay?" Jamal nodded, surprised by the warmth in her voice. He realized David's toxic reign had forced even some decent managers to adopt a cold, defensive stance. Now they seemed to be emerging from hibernation, relearning how to treat colleagues like humans rather than pawns. The news spread quickly through the VIP lounges and executive offices. Two lounge attendants who once adhered to David's unspoken expectations of catering only to certain prioritized passengers suddenly had to rethink their approach. A newly promoted lounge supervisor sent a memo stating that all first-class passengers would receive equal service. No more relying on someone's skin color or luggage brand to decide who's worthy. In the offices behind the check-in counters, employees huddled around screens reviewing shaky cell phone footage. Some bold staffers had recorded during the emergency meeting. Though the video was partially obscured, Marcus Johnson's takedown of David and his calm dismissal were crystal clear. The final moment when security led David out, red-faced and stammering, drew triumphant cheers from onlookers. The tyranny was over. Some employees, particularly those who sympathized with David or benefited from his favoritism, weren't cheering. They felt the floor collapse beneath them, realizing their cushion was gone. A few even tried to erase evidence of questionable decisions, like unfair shift assignments or tacking fees onto passengers from digital records. They didn't know Marcus's team had already begun auditing all operational logs. Outside the airport, the story became a viral sensation overnight. It started with a tweet from a passenger who overheard part of the staff meeting. Within hours, the tweet was picked up by aviation bloggers and news aggregators. Headlines read, "Undercover Black, CEO fires manager who told him to wait outside." Social media platforms buzzed with thousands of comments. Many users applauded Marcus Johnson's boldness and praised him for tackling workplace discrimination head-on. Others were skeptical, dismissing it as a publicity stunt. But the overwhelming online sentiment saw the incident as proof that bigotry persists in some corporate cultures, and sometimes it takes decisive strength to root it out. Soon, mainstream outlets like CNN, NBC, and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution covered the story. They aired segments highlighting how Marcus Johnson's intervention signaled a major shift in corporate governance. Aviation forums buzzed. Passengers shared their own experiences with rude or discriminatory airline staff, not just at Horizon, but across other carriers. The conversation expanded to reported truths about racism in the aviation and hospitality industries, thrusting the issue of bias into the public eye more forcefully than usual. At Horizon, the response was more nuanced. While most employees felt relieved and even vindicated, a small minority harbored resentment or fear. Some mid-level managers who enforced David's unwritten rules like subtle racism or quiet nepotism wondered if they'd be next on the chopping block. They spent sleepless nights awaiting HR summons or termination notices. Each day they checked their emails with dread, expecting an investigation notice detailing their questionable conduct. For employees who stayed neutral during David's reign, often out of fear or lack of power, the moment was bittersweet. Yes, David was gone, but they couldn't help feeling regret for not speaking up. Guilt mingled with relief. A few vowed to do better now that the environment had shifted. They found themselves reaching out to colleagues they'd silently watched get mistreated, offering belated apologies and small gestures of kindness. Karen, a senior check-in agent, told a colleague, "It's like someone opened a window after years of stale air. I just wish we'd had the guts to crack it open ourselves sooner." While the upheaval unfolded inside the airport, David Thompson roamed Atlanta trying to salvage his reputation. He reached out to local news stations with a sob story, painting himself as the victim of a vindictive executive on a power trip. In the few interviews David landed, he claimed Marcus Johnson was a figurehead exploiting people's livelihoods for political games. But David's account quickly fell apart. Overwhelming contradictory evidence, employee testimonies. David's own recorded remarks and Horizon's subsequent corporate statement made it impossible for David to rewrite the narrative convincingly. Numerous employees provided documents and messages exposing David's long-standing threatening and discriminatory behavior. HR complaints that had been ignored or buried during David's tenure resurfaced with devastating impact. Under pressure from these revelations, David's defenders backed off. Even his lawyer, initially hired to threaten a wrongful termination lawsuit, stepped back after seeing the mountain of evidence against him. The lawsuit never materialized, and David quietly faded from major media, his image irreparably tarnished in the weeks that followed. Horizon's leadership under Marcus Johnson and COO Sarah Mitchell held a series of meetings and training sessions at the Atlanta hub. Employees were strongly encouraged to voice concerns, share past experiences, and suggest ideas for a more inclusive environment. For many, it was the first time they felt their opinions truly mattered. A new ethics and diversity committee comprising representatives from ground crews, flight attendants, gate agents, and corporate executives was established. The committee's mandate was to review all workplace harassment or bias complaints and ensure swift, transparent resolution. Its existence sent a powerful message that the company was serious about change, giving employees a safety net they lacked. Under David new bulletin boards appeared around the airport's employee-only areas. Boldly printed posters declared every passenger is a VIP, and we're one airline family. There's no room for discrimination. While some found the slogans simplistic, they served as constant reminders that the airline was working to shed old habits. Meanwhile, Sarah Mitchell announced an internal survey to collect anonymous feedback on management styles, customer service protocols, and workplace culture. The response rate was staggering. Over 80% of employees filled it out. HR reported that many felt empowered, finally believing speaking up was worthwhile. Of course, change wasn't uniform. Some employees who'd mirrored David's biases struggled to abandon old ways overnight. A lounge attendant recently disciplined for ignoring a Hispanic traveler's request admitted she'd followed what she thought was the company standard, prioritizing wealthier-looking passengers and reading superficial cues about who deserved attention. But after mandatory diversity and empathy training, she asked a bilingual colleague to teach her Spanish phrases to better serve passengers. At first, she felt awkward and self-conscious, but over time, her desire to improve grew. Colleagues began seeing her not as a relic of David's era, but as someone genuinely trying to change. Similar transformations occurred among other employees who'd shared David's mindset. They started by volunteering for new cultural sensitivity, workshops, attending extra customer service training, and seeking guidance from colleagues of different backgrounds. Some efforts were clumsy, others heartfelt, but there was a marked difference from the silent, fearful atmosphere just weeks earlier. David Thompson's downfall became a talking point at industry conferences and aviation seminars. Other airlines, domestic and international, grappled with the same issue, a layer of implicit bias affecting how staff treated different passengers. As journalists pressed airline executives for comments, many responded with carefully worded statements about diversity commitments and zero-tolerance policies. Behind closed doors, airline executives and HR teams couldn't ignore that Marcus Johnson's story highlighted an industry weakness. For decades, airlines faced accusations of racism, classism and xenophobia, from gate agents harassing minority passengers to flight attendants ignoring onboard misconduct. Now the public had a high-profile case study where such behavior led to immediate, decisive consequences. It's about time someone in leadership took a stand, said a spokesperson for a major flight attendants union. For too long, people like David Thompson exploited loopholes in their positions to perpetuate toxic workplaces. Carter's example shows where there's a will, there's a way to clean house. A month later, Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport hummed as usual, but a new energy coursed through Horizon's terminals. Customer satisfaction scores climbed steadily. The staff, though, leaner from the firings, was more cohesive. New hiring initiatives attracted more diverse employees, each undergoing rigorous customer service training. Marcus ensured supervisors and regional managers were individuals who embraced the airline's core values, not those pushing outdated toxic agendas. Marcus also introduced new policies, mandatory cultural sensitivity and empathy training for every employee, from part-time baggage handlers to corporate executives. The program aimed to dismantle biases, foster understanding, and ensure no passenger would ever be told to wait outside just because they didn't look like a serious traveler. In a public address, Marcus outlined specific steps for accountability, an anonymous hotline for reporting discrimination, stricter performance reviews, and rotating cultural awareness workshops. He believed a thriving airline didn't just need efficient systems. It had to be run by people with empathy. As for Marcus, he didn't retreat to corporate offices. He regularly visited airports where Horizon operated, continuing his practice of quietly observing staff-customer interactions. Sometimes he revealed himself. Other times, he stayed incognito. Either way, he made it clear he was serious about rooting out any remnants of the old guard's conservatism. For Marcus, the experience was more than a power move. It was personal. He recalled his early days in aviation as a young intern, often facing microaggressions and overt racism. He'd promised himself that one day he'd reach a position to make real change. Now he was keeping that promise. One day during a routine check at Hartsfield-Jackson, Marcus ran into Jamal. Jamal eagerly approached him, his face beaming. "Sir, I just wanted to thank you again. This morning, I was able to help a family get seated together after they were split up in a last-minute booking. They were so grateful. It reminded me why I love this job." Marcus smiled. "That's why we're here. Keep it up." A swell of pride rose in him, knowing small acts of kindness could now thrive in an environment no longer stifled by David's intimidation. The best part, Jamal wasn't alone. Marcus heard similar stories from employees across the network, each reaffirming his belief that decency could be cultivated. Marcus decided to stop by the Diamond Lounge one afternoon to gauge the changes. He was greeted by a new attendant, a young woman named Aisha, who welcomed him with a warm smile, scanned his boarding pass without hesitation, and ushered him inside. The lounge buzzed with conversation, but gone was the stifling air of judgment. Diverse travelers, business people, families, solo, adventurers relaxed in plush seats, all receiving equal attention. Aisha handed Marcus a drink. Menu explained the complimentary options and told him she'd be happy to assist with anything he needed. He thanked her and settled by the window, enjoying the sight of planes gliding across the tarmac. The lounge felt fresh, reborn under the wave of new policies and staff attitudes. Occasionally, other travelers glanced at him, perhaps recognizing him from news coverage as the undercover CEO who fired a slew of employees. But no one disturbed his quiet reflection. He savored the irony that once pained him deeply. He'd become the kind of CEO willing to go to any length to ensure fairness. This was just the beginning. Months later, David Thompson tried filing a wrongful termination lawsuit, but it went nowhere. The evidence was overwhelming. The final blow came when other employees, men and women from varied backgrounds, testified against David, recounting years of intimidation and discrimination. David's case collapsed, and he quietly dropped it. Rumors swirled that he'd moved to another city for a lower-level job, overshadowed by a scandal that never left his name. Robert, Laura, and Nathan all tried applying to other airlines, but word traveled fast in the tight-knit aviation community. The best they could find were positions at smaller operations, ironically forced to start over from the bottom. Each faced the consequences of their own biases. Meanwhile, employees who stayed at Horizon found new advancement opportunities. Sarah Mitchell, the COO, oversaw expansion into new markets while championing a more inclusive workplace culture. New managers joined the team, progressive leaders with proven records, ensuring the toxic environment David created would never return. Perhaps most surprising was the passengers' enthusiastic support. Social media overflowed with praise for Horizon, though some skeptics called it damage control. Many travelers genuinely appreciated the noticeable shift in customer service. Corporate partnerships flourished. Charitable ties with community organizations grew. With better morale, on-time performance, and operational efficiency soared. In short, Horizon was thriving. Marcus watched these developments with cautious optimism. He knew the fight against discrimination was ongoing, not a one-time event, but for now, he saw progress. He saw empowered employees speaking up. He noticed a direct correlation between the airline's improved culture and its financial success. The evidence showed doing the right thing was also good for business. When asked about his leadership style in a high-profile interview, Marcus said, plainly, "I believe in fairness, not fear. When employees feel respected, they respect customers. It's a virtuous cycle. And if someone doesn't buy into that, they're free to find work elsewhere." A year after that fateful day, Marcus stood again in Hartsfield-Jackson's main terminal. This time, he was overseeing a European expansion. The check-in lines moved briskly with staff, warmly greeting passengers. Marcus recognized some faces, people who'd survived the purge and thrived under the new regime. They waved or nodded at him, grateful for a second chance at a better workplace. As Marcus boarded his flight, he couldn't help but recall how just a year ago the same airline staffer had told him to wait outside, shooing him away with prejudice. Now he was welcomed with genuine smiles and impeccable service. It wasn't just a personal victory. It was proof an organization could change swiftly when leadership demanded accountability. He settled into his first-class seat and exhaled. Relieved, the plane began taxiing toward the runway. Through the window, he caught a glimpse of the vast tarmac, the airport skyline shimmering under the Atlanta sun. He recalled David's parting words, "This isn't over," and realized in a way David was right. the fight against bigotry and incompetence. Incompetence never truly ends. But as the plane climbed, Marcus felt confident in the path he'd set for himself and Horizon. He closed his eyes, savoring the quiet victory. He'd turned a moment of blatant discrimination into a catalyst for sweeping reform. And if that wasn't a legacy worth having, he didn't know what was. After Marcus Johnson's Undercover triumph, Horizon Airways soared to new heights. Proof that one bold individual can dismantle systemic issues and rebuild something stronger. An airport once plagued by prejudice transformed into a hub of respect and efficiency, with empowered employees standing up for what's right. Marcus's story reminds us that real change begins when we confront injustice, head-on, unafraid of the consequences. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of courage and justice. We're thrilled to share stories that inspire and uplift, like Marcus Johnson's bold stand against discrimination. If this story moved you, please give it a thumbs up to show your support. Share it with friends and family who could use a dose of inspiration, and drop a comment below. Tell us what part of Marcus's story hit home for you, or share your own experiences with standing up for what's right. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss another powerful story. Your engagement helps us keep bringing these transformative tales to life, and we're so grateful to have you as part of our community. Let's keep the conversation going and continue championing fairness together.